And we are back.
Hello again. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're the horror guys, here to talk about some horror movies.
The Horror Movie Guys, episode 118. And, believe it or not, we've got...
Vincent Price movies.
We do. Yeah, 4 of them for you.
It's another Vincent Price week.
And not the last Vincent Price week either. What are we going to start with?
Well, we could start with...
Tales.
The Haunted Palace.
Well, we could.
Tales.
I was going to go chronological, but
okay.
It don't matter.
We'll go chronological, yeah.
Tales of Terror from 1962. And
Roger
then what?
Corman.
Right.
And then Comedy of Terrors from 1963.
Same group of people.
Spoofing the previous year.
Yeah, and then one that's not so much funny with...
The Haunted Palace. Or just Haunted Palace. No, it is The Haunted Palace.
I think it is The Haunted Palace. The Haunted Palace, yeah.
And then The Raven from 1963.
Which is kind of nothing but laughs.
So we're doing funny, serious.
Yeah.
Funny, serious, funny.
I'd say 3 out of 4 of those are more funny than serious.
3 out of 4? Nah.
Tales of Terror, it had that one with Peter Lorre. That was a funny one. They weren't all funny. It was a mix.
Yeah, and even the funny one was kind of grim. So, yeah. I think that one was not intended for funny.
Oh, I think it was. The middle segment on that one was the trilogy. Okay, well, anyway. We're starting out with the Tales of Terror. But first, who are we sponsored by?
Us.
Oh, yeah.
We have books.
We've got the Horror Guys books. We've got a sextet of strange staging, 6 surprising scripts, and more than a little alliteration there. We've got Tales to Make You Shiver, Volume 1 and 2. Each book has 13 short tales of terror. Tales of Terror. There's our movie title.
And I understand you're working on a silent movie book that's going to be coming out soon.
The Horror Guys, I don't know the exact title just yet, but it's relating to the silent age of film. Whole bunch of silent movies coming out within the next week or so.
Soon.
Yeah, we'll have a link on the site when that happens. And, of course, that goes along with the Horror Guys Guide to Universal Studios Shock Theater, the Horror Guys Guide to Universal Studios Son of Shock, and the Horror Guys Guide to Hammer Horror Films. Then we'll have the Horror Guys Guide to the Silent Age or something like that.
Something like that.
It's hard to come up with a good silent title.
Yeah, because you can't say it out loud.
That's right. All right, Tales of Terror, 1962, directed by Roger Corman, written by Richard Matheson. Stars Vincent Price, Maggie Pierce, Leona Gage, and a bunch of other people.
A trilogy of shock and horror, as the poster says.
I wouldn't go that far.
Shock and horror?
It is a trilogy.
It was a trilogy, yeah.
Hour and a half, Amazon link if you want to pick one up. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was okay.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah,
I liked all these this week. They were all good.
Some more than others. I have a favorite.
Ooh.
Can you guess which one was my favorite?
Boy, I don't know. Which one is your favorite?
The Raven.
Okay.
Yeah, like that one who asked. The most recent one. And
they weren't even trying to
the
take that
funniest,
one seriously.
Oh, they were just outright being funny. Yeah, and I thought they succeeded. I LOL'd multiple times watching that.
Definitely. Okay, so back to the first movie this week, Tales of Terror. The first segment is called Morella. Lenora returns. You notice they're always either Lenore, Lenora, something like that. One of the
it's
a Poe name.
So yeah, they're inspired by Poe.
Lenora returns home after a long absence. The house is covered in cobwebs and extremely neglected. Her father doesn't even recognize her at first. "Who are you?" he says. "I'm your daughter."
What?
I think she's been gone a while.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want her there, and he blames her for the death of his wife, Morella, who died just a few months after giving birth to Lenora. He sent her away as a baby, and this is her first visit back. She goes exploring in the old house, and then she finds her dead mother in her bedroom. Okay. Ew. She's all mummified and gross, and Lenora is terrified. "When she died, I died with her," says Mr. Locke. But he said it's a lot more like Vincent Price sounds.
Yes.
I don't do a Vincent Price. Lenora explains that she has a terminal disease and only has a few months to live. He apologizes and asks for her forgiveness. They kind of make up a little bit, but she dies that very night. No, she doesn't. She gasps for breath.
Huh.
She's alive. No, Wait, she really is dead.
Well, which is it?
Then she sits up, and it's not Lenora. It's Morella. Now it's Lenora who's mummified in Morella's bed. Locke drops the candle, which ignites the bed. There's a lot of fires in these movies.
Oh, yeah. American Film International and Hammer both used that as a trope.
Yeah.
Suddenly the entire room is engulfed in flames.
It's a way to clean up the loose ends at the end.
Yeah, and boy, those rooms go up fast. Even the stone walls. You ever notice that?
I'd love to know how these stone castles burn.
Yeah.
Well, Morella is not so happy to be home, and she wants her revenge. She strangles Locke as the house burns. And then we move to the second part of the trilogy called The Black Cat.
And spoiler, Vincent Price's character dies in all three of these tales. He's in all three of them.
Yeah, he does, doesn't
he?
His
character buys it in all three of them. Yeah.
Well, Montresor, who's played by Peter Lorre, is a very silly alcoholic. He has a wife who adores her black cat and refuses to give him any money to drink. He hasn't worked in 17 years. He bumbles around searching for a hidden stash of cash, but he really hates that damn cat. He passes out without finding anything. Next morning he wakes up and takes her last bit of money. He spends the money quickly and gets thrown out of the bar. He wanders around begging until he finds a wine merchants' convention. Well, all right.
Stumbled into heaven. Let me try a few dozen samples.
They have invited Fortunato, a wine-tasting expert, to do a demonstration of wine tasting. Montresor challenge him to a drinking contest. Both Lorre and Price ham it up over the wine tasting. They're very different in style, but they are both wine experts of a sort. They drink until Montresor passes out. Fortunato walks him home because there's no way Montresor could get there on his own. He introduces Fortunato to his wife Annabelle. She thinks Fortunato's a classy dude. He loves cats, and the two hit it off just before Montresor passes out for good. They cart him off to bed, and one thing leads to another. Yeah. Over the next few weeks, she gives Montresor all the money he asks for, and he can stay out all night. Could she be misbehaving?
Really, please. You should
Here,
go out
away.
and have some more drinks. Yeah. I'll be fine here at home, alone.
Alone, yes. He decides to go home early that night and catches them in the act.
Don't.
She mocks him. You and I are finished. I'm going to leave you and become Mrs. Fortunato Lucrezi.
Wow.
Oh, she sounds like she came from Kentucky, doesn't she? Next evening, Fortunato comes to the door and Montresor answers. The two go in for a drink. They drink to each other's long lives. Naturally, the drink is drugged, and when Fortunato wakes up, he's been chained to a wall in Montresor's basement. Montresor is putting up bricks and mortar to wall in Fortunato into a room in the basement with Annabelle's corpse.
So this is kind of a mashup of Poe's Black Cat and Cask of the Amontillado.
Yes, a lot of these are mix-ups, combinations.
Mashups,
yes.
Uh-huh. And they certainly take liberties with Poe's work, too.
Okay, they do.
Loosely based on Poe. Inspired by Poe, I guess. Way to put it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Names have not been changed, but the plots have.
Yeah, sometimes greatly.
Fortunato laughs and tries to talk his way out of this predicament. He doesn't succeed. Afterwards, Montresor goes out and gets plastered himself. Plastered. When he returns, he dreams of a giant cat. When he wakes up, the police are there. He's starting to have hallucinations from drinking so much, and he starts to hear Fortunato, Annabelle, and that damn cat meowing from inside the walls. Except the policeman can hear the cat as well.
Oops.
Oops.
Well, I wonder where the cat is. Oops.
And the third part of the trilogy is The Strange Case of M. Valdemar. Old Man Valdemar is a great hypnosis subject. The doctor says he has no pain, and Valdemar accepts that. When he wakes up, the pain is gone. Mesmerism works, claims Valdemar. Mr. Carmichael is the mesmerist, while Dr. James has a lot of worries about the dangers of the process. Valdemar is dying of an incurable disease, but the pain can be lessened with hypnosis. And the doctor warns him, don't mess with hypnosis, it's dangerous, it's scary, we don't understand it.
And he's got the attitude of, what have I got to lose?
He's going to die anyway.
He's on his final legs, and
it does relieve his pain.
Yeah.
What could go wrong? After all, he's going to die anyway.
What could go wrong? Well, we're going to find out.
Carmichael has an idea. He wants to be mesmerized at the point of death to see what happens. Can a hypnotized man delay the moment of death? Dr. James does not approve and thinks it might be dangerous. Not only that, but both he and Carmichael have the eye for Helena, Valdemar's young wife. Valdemar actually wants her to marry Dr. James after he dies. He left her to him in his will.
Yeah.
Valdemar's condition worsens, and they call in Dr. Carmichael to begin the hypnotic process. Carmichael starts hypnotizing Valdemar and quickly puts him to sleep. The doctor examines Valdemar and pronounces him dead. Except he's not dead. Not exactly.
He's kind of a tweener.
I have been asleep, but now I am dead, says Valdemar without moving his mouth. Tell me what you see, commands Carmichael. I see only darkness and multitudes of people, Valdemar responds. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. And months pass. You see the outdoors. It goes from summer to winter with the snow. And Valdemar is still semi-awake and very unhappy with the situation.
And looking kind of gray.
Well, his body's decomposing.
Yeah, because he has no life signs, but he's still stuck there. Yeah.
But he's still trapped in this unmoving body. Helena offers to marry Carmichael if he just lets her husband die. Carmichael tries to rape Helena, and Valdemar sits up and comes after Carmichael. Oh, he can move.
Yep, when he wants to.
Dr. James comes downstairs when he hears Carmichael scream. When he breaks in the door, he finds Helena and 2 dead men. All right,
and he truly did this time.
Yeah. Well, Morella was a decent story, but there's kind of nothing special or memorable about it. Yeah, she dies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Black Cat misses 3 Potails in one. The Black Cat, a cask of Amontillado, and a telltale heart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, because they hear it at
of
the
that
end.
too,
Yeah. It's definitely the funniest of the 3 and very well done. And Valdemar was the closest of the 3 stories to the original Poe story. I don't really remember that story that well, but I don't remember it being much different.
Yeah, I think it was pretty close.
Overall, it's a fun trilogy, but it's kind of a little on the tame side. What'd you say the poster said?
Shock and horror. A trilogy of shock and horror.
Yeah, that's not quite true.
Yeah.
It's got some laughs. It's got some good parts to it. It's very entertaining, but it is not scary. You almost might call it a comedy.
Yeah, not quite. I wouldn't call it a comedy. And then we have Comedy of Terrors.
Which is clearly a comedy.
1963, yes. They were deliberately trying for funnies.
Yeah. Directed by Jacques Tourneur. Written by Richard Matheson. Stars Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff. And it's an hour and 24 minutes. And this is not a trilogy. It's just one story. And it is, as the name presents, it is just strictly a comedy.
Yes.
But it's got all the usual kind of horror tropes to it, definitely.
A couple of doofuses.
And I don't think this is really related to Poe in any way.
No, I don't think so.
They were trying to be funny here.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was as funny as The Raven. Didn't like it as well as that. But yeah, it had some chuckles. And yeah.
It's funny. This one was clearly made and marketed as a comedy, but you're saying it's not as funny as The Raven, which was a little more serious.
Oh, I think The Raven was deliberately.
I don't think it was really marketed as a comedy, though.
Yeah, not as much as this one was. Well, it's comedy in the title. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a funeral in the cemetery. What could be more hilarious? Waldo and Felix stand by as the mourners pay their respects. The funeral ends, and the 2 dump the corpse into the grave and clean up the coffin in order to reuse it for the next client. Credits roll. What? They've only got 1 coffin.
Yeah, they own a funeral parlor that's sketchy, to say the least.
Really sketchy. Yeah. Waldo argues with his wife, Amaryllis, while her deaf, elderly father, Amos, sleeps at the table. Waldo's a heavy drinker, and she's a harpy. Amos builds up a thriving undertaker business until Waldo ran it into the ground, and now Waldo is continually trying to poison the old man. Felix is a really poor carpenter and an even worse coffin builder. It's a good thing they still have that 1 good coffin.
Just one.
Just the one. Mr. Black wants his rent for the past year from Waldo, which seems to be non-forthcoming. Amaryllis sings opera in the kitchen, and Felix has a crush on her. Well, Waldo thinks she's repulsive. They're nearly broke, so Waldo and Felix decide to go out and drum up some new business.
Mm-hmm.
How does an undertaker drum up new business?
What could go wrong?
Well, they sneak into a rich old man's house in the middle of the night, and it's clear that these two are the loudest, clumsiest, and most inept housebreakers in the country. They find his hot young wife asleep in the first room, and the old man asleep in the second. Waldo smothers the old man with a pillow. Then they wait outside until morning, when they hear the wife scream. They're like, "Hello, we heard you scream. We just happen to be parked outside.
We just happen to be in the neighborhood. Do you need our assistance?"
Friendly neighborhood morticians. The funeral proceeds until they find out the widow isn't coming. Waldo rushes to their house to find the wife, and he rushes out to the house to find the wife, but the house is abandoned. She took everything and moved to Europe. She left no money, so Waldo isn't going to get paid.
Not paying the bill.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
They're going to have to go out tonight again and find another customer. Mr. Black sends him a final notice to collect his rent, which makes Waldo decide that Black will be their next client.
Gonna kill two birds with one stone.
Yes. Well, they sneak along to Black's house, and they bring their pet cat with them. It takes entirely too long for Felix to climb into the upstairs window. Black is inside, awake, and reading Macbeth. He's roaming the house carrying a sword, acting out the parts in Macbeth, so Felix is a little hesitant to leave the room. Felix escapes, but Mr. Black has a heart attack in the process. The doctor proclaims Black to be dead, but the servant mentions that Black suffers from catalepsy and has appeared dead before. Felix and Waldo load him in the cart and take him away. We see that Black twitches his nose.
He's not really dead.
No. He wakes up and argues that he's not dead. "What jiggery-pokery is this?" he asks. Jiggery-pokery is, way underused.
I don't think I've ever used that in a sentence before now. Well, jiggery-pokery.
I like jiggery-pokery. They start to fight, but Black falls down, dead again.
Yep, he's dead this time.
They dump his body in the coffin, and Black wakes up again. They all battle with the coffin lid. "I've never had such an uncooperative customer in my whole life," Waldo whines. Then they whack him in the head with a mallet, and they gag and chain him inside the coffin. Well, okay then, that'll keep him quiet.
Yeah.
Finally, it's time for the funeral. Amaryllis wails, "He's not dead, but sleeping. He's not dead at all."
Yeah.
At the funeral.
And she's got a...
She sings worse than I just did.
Well, she's clearly a trained singer. Was it really the actor singing?
I think it probably was.
Dub singing.
I think it was horrible.
Well, I mean, it was a mix of beautiful and horrible. Yeah. I think she was playing it up to
I'm sure she was,
to sound awful. Yeah, I think she was really a trained... The notes she was hitting and stuff, but, she manages to be
the character is a horrible singer.
Yeah,
the character
screechy and cackly about it, yeah.
But, he's not dead but sleeping. He's not dead at all.
Peter Lorre's character is just enchanted by her singing, and everybody else is covering their ears practically and grimacing.
Yeah. Amos gets up in front of the group and gives a eulogy for old what's-his-name. He can't remember the man's name. Then they get the bad news. The coffin is going to be put into a crypt, so they can't take it back like usual. They'll have to get a new coffin after only 13 years using this one.
Wow.
Well, they lock him in the family crypt, and as soon as everyone leaves, the old man wakes up in the coffin and asks, "What place is this?" That night, Felix and Amaryllis dance while Waldo counts his hard-earned money. Waldo ignores Amaryllis, so she goes to Felix for some comfort. They plan to run off together so she can be an opera star and leave Waldo to his bottle. I smell success in that plan.
Not so much.
Meanwhile, back in the cemetery, the night watchman releases Mr. Black from the crypt. Black goes to the funeral home and picks up an axe along the way.
He's back, and he's pissed.
Yeah, he is. Waldo heads down to the basement when he hears a noise and hunts for the intruder, very drunk. Yeah, he's barely can walk, but he's looking for this guy with the axe. He passes out, not noticing the muddy footprints leading upstairs.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Black storms into Amaryllis's room, and she screams. Black chases them all around the house, shouting Shakespearean quotes all the way. I don't think he had anything... Did he say anything that wasn't a Shakespearean quote?
I'm not sure.
After he died?
Yeah, it might have been entirely.
I think it was. Felix falls down the stairs. Finally, Waldo shoots Black, but he still dies hard. Waldo's on a roll, so he strangles Amaryllis as well. Felix wakes up and finds Amaryllis dead. Now, Felix decides to kill Waldo and comes after him with a sword. The two have a ridiculous sword fight. Black's butler barges in and sees everything. He runs off to call the police. Then Amaryllis and Felix wake up. They walk out the front door and leave town. Nobody ever dies in this movie. Old man Amos stumbles down the stairs and trips over Waldo's unconscious body. He pulls out Waldo's medicine and gets Waldo to drink the bottle that we all know is really poison.
Yeah, that was a running joke through the whole thing.
He kept trying to poison the old man with medicine.
And the old guy thought it was medicine, and the daughter kept stopping and saying, "No, don't drink that." And
why do you keep taking my medicine away?
Keep taking my medicine away. And, well, this time he pours the whole bottle down Vincent Price's throat, thinking, "Oh, you need some medicine.
Yeah, so Waldo dies as the old man whines about nothing interesting ever happening there. As a final shot, Mr. Black wakes up one more time. What place is this?
Yeah, people die hard in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I think at the end there's only one real death. It takes a bunch of horror tropes and does a full-on comedy production. Price and Laurie are very good at silly comedy, at least as good as they are at horror, and it's just one joke after another. I lost track of how many times Basil Rathbone died in this film, and I think all of the characters did as well.
Yeah.
It's very silly, but it's a classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well worth a watch.
Yeah. And one that is not at all silly is our short film for the week called The Familiars.
Which was another good one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And this is from 2020, directed by Millicent Malcolm, written by Octavia Barron Martin, and stars Millie Alcock, Helen Stewart, and Julia Savage. It is 16 minutes long. And okay.
This is another one that we saw at the Virtual Film Festival.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. A group of pilgrims cut down a witch they had hung up. A girl cut some of the witch's hair off.
Family heirloom.
Family hair?
Heirloom. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the present day, a couple of girls dress as witches for Halloween. One of the girls' bunnies has gone missing, and the mother tells the youngest about the hair, which contain all the witch's powers. She still has that hair. The mother takes the youngest girl's hair from the hairbrush before they go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
The older girl wakes up and goes down the hallway to find an old dead woman, her grandmother, in their mother's bed. She gets in the closet and takes out the magic hair. Her mother seems relieved that she took it. The missing bunny turns up cooked in a pan for Grandma. Oh, wait, Mother does want the hair, and she knocks the older child out in anger. It seems whoever has the hair holds all the power.
Ooh, and I wonder who will end up with it. Well, if you watch it,
I guess you would say it would be the heir to the power. The heir to the power.
Heir to the power, yeah.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what the mother was doing to the dead grandmother or why that was a problem, but it's really obvious how the power structure is going to work in the house from now on.
Yeah, thought this was a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the back and forth, and yeah.
Which takes us to our third Price movie this week, The Haunted Palace, 1963. Directed by Roger Corman, written by Charles Beaumont, stars Vincent Price, Deborah Paget, Lon Chaney Jr. Hour and 27 minutes, link in the show notes. I don't think I had seen this one before.
No, I had not.
What'd you think?
It was okay.
It was okay, yes.
Yeah, I think it was my least favorite of the four, but it was okay.
And it was also the serious one.
Yeah,
there was not much humor in this one at all.
No, very grim and serious.
I can't say I honestly remember a Poe story about the Haunted Palace.
No, I don't either.
Not one of his big ones.
No, loosely inspired by Poe. Oh, actually, it was a mashup. This was a mashup of an H.P. Lovecraft story, too. The case
Oh,
of
that's
Charles
right.
Dexter Ward.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we don't remember
They
the
tried.
Poe
They
story.
took the Lovecraft story and pretended it was a Poe story.
Kind of mashed up, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a dark and stormy night. The men in the tavern spot a mysterious woman in a cloak walking outside. A couple of them follow her to the cemetery, and they follow her until she knocks on the door of a castle. "That's the home of Satan himself," says one of the men. Inside, the woman removes her cloak and stands before Joseph Kerwin and Hester, who lead them to the dungeon. They chain the young woman up to a device, and Joseph begins the ritual.
Meanwhile, the peasants are revolting.
Meanwhile, yes, they are. As the villagers arrive at the castle gates, they grab Joseph and tie him to a tree. He curses the villagers, and they burn him at the stake as a warlock. All right, story's over.
Yep.
110 years later, in the town of Arkham.
The ancestors of these original people look exactly like the...
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Almost as if it was the same actors playing the same...
No, that wouldn't be.
Playing,
They wouldn't
playing
do
their
that.
descendants.
They wouldn't do that.
Well, as a matter of fact, yeah.
Okay, so two
Yeah.
travelers arrive in the town of Arkham.
Well, that could be part of the curse, you know.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
They keep being reborn over and over. You know.
Well, it looks cursed, I'll give it that, the man jokes. They go into the tavern and everyone just stares at them. His name is Charles Dexter Ward, and she's Anne Ward. We see that he looks just like old Joseph, who was burned at the stake many years ago. That was his great-great-grandfather. Edgar Whedon warns him that the place is dangerous and cursed. Dr. Willett tells him how to get to the palace and that they are on their way. Edgar thinks Charles is Joseph, who has come back to Arkham. They pass a little girl with no eyes along the way. Yeah, there's some creepy-looking people in this story.
Yeah, there are.
They arrive at the huge house, which has a giant deadbolt on the outside of the door. I thought that was strange.
Yes.
They got like one of those slide bolt things, but it's on the outside.
What are you trying to keep in?
Well, they go inside the dust-covered palace, and they find a picture on the wall that looks exactly like Charles.
And the place is just huge.
It is large. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's big. And, well, they call it a palace, and it certainly is.
Yes.
It's not just a house. Inside, they find Simon, the caretaker. He creeps them out at first, but he's the only friendly face they've seen, so they agree to spend the night. Charles stares at the paintings on the wall, and the painting stares back, giving him a headache. Edgar Whedon has a monster in the closet at home, and he feeds it raw meat. It's especially rowdy tonight. "It knows who's come back to Arkham," he explains to his wife.
Yeah, and this is apparently their child.
A mutant child or
Yeah,
something,
there's-
yes.
Yeah, so the children are often malformed, and this is an especially bad one.
Yeah, yeah. That's not really explained, but it becomes clear.
Well, we see more of them that
Yeah.
are, blind and maimed and, missing limbs and stuff later.
Fun place to live.
Not so much.
Come to Arkham.
Or
Give birth
we're
to a
cursed.
mutant.
We're cursed. Join the curse.
Well, he said right when he got to town, it certainly looks cursed.
yeah.
Well, the next morning, Charles says they're going to stay there. Anne is creeped out, but she doesn't want to stay. Later, they go to town and see more people in town who are missing eyes or otherwise deformed. The doctor later explains that they're mutants, and Whedon gathered them to scare away the wards. All right, bring out your mutes.
Yep.
The doctor explains what happened to Kerwin and about the curse. Kerwin was said to have owned the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead. Kerwin and other warlocks were trying to open the gates and allow the old gods through. Got your Lovecraft
Very
right here.
Lovecraftian. Yeah.
That night, Charles goes downstairs and walks right outside to the tree where Kerwin was burned. He hears voices calling to him. Simon pops up and scares the crap out of Charles. Got a little jump scare there. Simon welcomes Joseph back, and Charles/Joseph asks, "How long?" Another man, Jabez, comes in. These are the three warlocks the doctor spoke of. Joseph explains that he can't control Charles for long right now, but his influence will grow. Later, the three warlocks go out to the cemetery and dig up Hester's grave. Anne and Charles are not getting along as he keeps snipping at her. He insists that she leave tomorrow, and Charles and Joseph argue with himself. There's a strange sentence.
It was, yeah.
Later, Anne finds the door to the men's workroom. The men's workroom. She gets scared, but then she runs into Simon. She passes out, and Simon takes her back to her room and locks her in. Meanwhile, Hester rises from the grave as a rotted zombie, but she doesn't live long after that. The next morning, Charles packs up and gets ready to leave, but once again the painting takes him. Dr. Willett arrives at the house and explains about the grave robbery. The townspeople all think Charles did it, which of course he did. Charles comes out and says he plans to stay now. Anne tells Willett everything, and he advises her to leave him, but realizes that she can't really do that. Because this is in the past when the women had to do what the husband said.
Yep, women had their place, yeah.
Joseph unlocks the door to Whedon's monster closet and opens the door for it. Whedon returns home and the thing pulls him into the fireplace, burning them both to death. We never really see it. Joseph crosses a name from his list. Peter Smith is walking home the next night, and Joseph pours kerosene all over him and lights it. Oh, it's a revenge story. Simon asks Joseph if he's had enough revenge. Joseph said this town is going to be a graveyard before he's finished. The doctor returns, and Joseph explains that Anne has changed, and he'd like the doctor to recommend she go elsewhere. Anne and the doctor go back to town and find that Mr. Gideon has been burned to death. They turn back to the palace to get Charles before the villagers do, but meanwhile, Joseph tries to raise Hester from the dead once again, and this time he is successful. Anne and Willits find the secret door and descend to Joseph's dungeon. They find Hester's empty coffin and the Necronomicon. They look in the grate beneath their feet and see a green, monstrous thing.
Creepy.
Ooh, it's a blurry green thing under the floor.
Creepy.
If your budget doesn't cover monsters, make a blurry green thing under the floor.
Yeah, basically.
Joseph and the others arrive, and he says they are going to complete the ritual they began so long ago. They don't understand it themselves, but we obey, he explains. They strap Anne into the torture device, and Joseph starts to chant. They open the grate in the floor, and the green monster beneath starts to rise. The men outside break in and storm the castle. They immediately set the place on fire. When they burn the painting, Charles takes over the body for the moment, and he rushes to save Anne. Willett and Anne run away, but Simon and Jabez grab Charles. Willits goes back in and grabs Charles and helps him out too. We see that Charles is still very green-tinted as he smiles evilly. Yeah, the three warlocks are all sort of green-colored, and no one seems to comment on that.
Nobody notices but us.
Yeah. Well, Simon and Jabez are green, and toward the end there, so is Joseph/Charles. I assume it's because they're undead or a zombie or something like that, but it's never really explained.
And no one else notices but us.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's a way to tip off the audience that, hey, it's them. It's still him.
Makes them look creepier for sure.
Yeah, it does.
Joseph/Charles looks more and more greenish as the film progresses. And at the end, that's how you know who won.
Over. Yeah.
I don't think I had seen this one before, and it's actually quite good. We never really see what becomes of Joseph's three accomplices, and other than feeding the monster in the dungeon, we aren't sure what the larger plan was for bringing back the old gods. A lot of questions are unanswered, but it is a good one.
Yeah, still entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah, the castle didn't burn down at the end, did it?
No, in this one it didn't.
So the two warlocks and Hester, they're hanging around.
Yeah.
And the monster didn't die either.
No. So they could carry on their work.
They could, yes.
Until the villagers get PO'd again and started over again.
Well, we know Joseph didn't die. He's going to come back too. So, yeah, at the end they win probably.
Yeah.
Wipe out that stupid little town.
Yeah. Do it right this time.
Mutants. No more mutants. All right. So our final movie of the week is The Raven from 1960. All these movies are 62 and 63, so they had a busy couple of weeks.
Year.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
1963's The Raven, directed by Roger Corman, written by Richard Matheson, stars Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff, and Jack Nicholson.
And a small, well, he's
not
a
that
substantial
small.
role. Yeah. Uh-huh.
1 hour, 26 minutes.
Jack Nicholson when he was only 26. He was a young feller in this one.
Yeah, he was. We did the math. 26.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You like it, you say?
Yeah, this was my favorite of the four. Yeah, I enjoyed this one the most.
Why?
I thought it was the funniest.
It was definitely the funniest.
Yeah. And
Well, the Comedy of Terrors had a lot of humor in it, too.
Yeah. Well, I thought that they took the main guy, the Boris Karloff and the Vincent Price and the Peter Lorre, I thought they took everything they had learned up to this point and just poured it into these characters.
All of them had done horror.
Yeah.
All of them had done comedy.
And they just, went to town, I think, on this one.
Yeah. Peter Lorre died, within a year of this one.
Not long after this.
Yeah. Boris Karloff was old and had a lot of arthritis in both of his movies that he was in this week. Mm-hmm. And he had a hard time moving around. There's one scene in The Raven where he's in this flying chair, and he really didn't like that because it was very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So, you're getting old.
Yeah.
I don't know what year Boris Karloff died, but I think it was a couple years after this.
Well, I could look that up.
When did Boris Karloff die?
Boris Karloff die? 6 years later.
6 years, okay.
69.
So he had a while to go.
He was 81 in 1969.
Peter Lorre was like 60 when he died, though, so he did not have a really long career.
Not super old.
Well, Dr. Craven, Vincent Price, we see him drawing a raven in the air with it like an etch-a-sketch with his finger, with his magic, just to entertain himself. So we can see immediately that he's a magician of some kind. He gets up and goes into the shrine room for his dead wife, because, magicians always have shrine rooms for their dead wives, whose name is Lenore.
And there's the Poe connection.
Yeah. We see
and there's a raven in it. There's a raven and there's a Lenore.
He reads quite a bit of the Raven as the credits roll.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so they use the actual poem.
Uh-huh.
We see that he's a little nervous and more than a little clumsy. His daughter Estelle says Lenore has been dead for 2 years now, and Craven needs to start getting over it. Not long after, he hears a tapping, a rapping at his chamber door.
Tap, tap, tap.
Oh, no, it isn't. It's at the window. It's a big black bird. Is it a turkey? No.
It's a raven.
Is it a crow? What is that thing?
It's a raven.
It's Craven's raven. He lets it inside. Are you some dark-winged messenger from beyond? He asks.
No.
How the hell should I know? Answers the raven. Would you give me some wine? And that's how you know it's Peter Lorre.
Yeah.
The bird explains that he's Dr. Bedloe, and he's been enchanted. Can Craven restore him to his rightful form? Well, Bedloe mentions that the ingredients they need for the spell, and Craven thinks maybe those things are in his dead father's old laboratory. They go down there and start mixing things up, and the raven starts to drink the concoction, and boom! Now he's Dr. Bedloe, who looks a lot like Peter Lorre. Bedloe explains that Dr. Scarabus was the one who enchanted him. Scarabus does magic only using his hands. Gesture magic is the most advanced sorcery.
Yeah.
Yes. They don't have enough of the potion, so they have to rob Craven's dead father of some dead man's hair. And the old corpse moans, "Beware."
Beware.
And not really very helpful.
And it's a very generic warning.
Beware.
What?
Yeah, what?
Could you give me a little more?
Finally, Bedloe is fully human again, but he needs to go back to Scarabus's castle to retrieve his magical equipment. See, he needs gimmicks and tricks and stuff to make it work.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the finger
props.
magic.
Yeah.
Bedloe notices a picture of Lenore and mentions that he just saw her at the Scarabus place earlier that evening.
What? You did not.
Craven decides he'll accompany Bedloe to the castle to see for himself. Before they leave, Craven's servant is possessed and turns against them, but Craven shoots him in the back with magic, which snaps the man out of it. They are joined by Rexford, Bedloe's son, and Estelle, Craven's daughter. The four arrive at the castle and go inside. Scarabus introduces himself, and he seems very friendly. Scarabus calls his maid, who kinda sorta does resemble Lenore, but it's obviously not her.
Obviously. Couldn't be.
Couldn't be. Scarabus offers them dinner. Craven thinks Scarabus and his father were bitter enemies, but Scarabus denies that. Oh no, we were good friends.
Friendly rivals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then they start to talk shop, going on about hand manipulation magic. Bedloe wants his magic equipment returned, and he drunkenly challenges Scarabus to a duel, for the second time tonight. This is how he wound up as a bird in the first place.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Bedloe attacks Scarabus, but he's useless. Scarabus makes a fool out of him, but that doesn't take too much effort. Scarabus turns him into a bubbling raspberry-flavored jelly.
Well, he summons a lightning storm.
Zap,
Yeah,
yes.
lightning comes and zaps him, and he's just a puddle. And
Well, they all go to their bedrooms after that, and then Craven sees the real Lenore outside his window. That's not the maid. Scarabus and Lenore talk. She faked her own death to be with him because he's rich and powerful. And she puts it just like that.
yeah,
Kind of blunt.
It's that simple. Yeah.
You're old, but hey, you're
Yeah.
rich and powerful, so I can deal.
When I was no longer, interested in Craven's money, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Rexford goes to warn Craven, but finds his father instead, still alive. We soon see that Bedloe has been working with Scarabus all along to get Craven in the castle.
Yeah, they faked the death, the lightning strike. That was just a trick.
Well, they all end up in the main room together, and Craven is turned to stone, and Bedloe is wrapped up in ropes. Scarabus turns against everyone. He turns Bedloe back into a bird. Bedloe returns. He says he was only pretending to be a traitor, and Bedloe frees Craven. Craven and Scarabus then have a duel to the death. They shoot comical spells at each other with snakes, bats, knives, and lightning bolts. After a while, Scarabus eventually... This is everything Harry Potter should have been.
Yeah, it would have been different.
Scarabus eventually
They
loses.
don't use wands, though.
They don't, no.
No.
And Lenore claims that she was mind-controlled by Scarabus all along, but Craven doesn't fall for it.
Doesn't buy it, no.
The big stone castle catches fire, and everyone rushes to the exit. Later, we see Scarabus and Lenore crawling out of the wreckage, and he's lost most of his powers. He says, I just don't got it no more. Nobody dies.
No, because it's a comedy.
Yep. That was a really well-trained bird they used for this.
Yeah, it was. That was impressive.
Jack Nicholson
Yeah.
was commented that it kept pooping all over his shoulder because it kept leaning on, like every time he would see the bird, he'd get pooped on. But it's really well trained in the film.
Yeah, and it's used a lot.
It is, yeah.
They carry him and shoulders and hands and arms and drinking on command, and yeah.
The drinking on command was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And then they, dubbed in Peter Lorre's voice over. But yeah, it's really cool.
This has all the usual horror trope set pieces and themes, but not a bit of it's taken seriously. The music alone is the standard comedic, bouncy stuff you hear in any other kind of comedy. The magic effects at the end are pretty good for the time period, but it's no Harry Potter. Price and Laurie are both terrific here.
Yeah.
Karloff is too old to do much action, but he's fine here too. Edgar Allan Poe, on the other hand, is still spinning in his grave from this.
You gotta wonder, if he
This
was
is not the story I
was
wrote.
able to see this movie, what would he think of this?
Well, that's our show. Thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at horrormovieguys.com to comment on the podcast or to contact us. You can email us at horrorguysmail@gmail.com. Stop in at horrorguys.com/books to buy the books. Facebook, we are facebook.com/horrormovieguys. And on Twitter, we are twitter.com/horrormovieguys. Because we are the Horror Movie Guys. So, are we going to watch movies next week?
I bet we will. We're going to see another Vincent Price classic, The Last Man on Earth.
Who filmed it?
Who filmed it?
If he was the last man on Earth, who ran the cameras?
Well, that's a good question. Well, and it's kind of he's not really the last.
Not
Spoiler.
really. No,
he's not really the last man on Earth. Yeah. And another Vincent Price, Masque of the Red Death, followed by Witchfinder General and Tomb of Ligeia.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't remember the Witchfinder General at all. I know I have seen it, but
I saw it when I was so young that I barely remember.
Okay. Tomb of Ligeia we just saw a few years ago at another film festival, and it was good. I remember it being good. Mm-hmm. But the Witchfinder General, I don't remember that one.
Now, what year was the Witchfinder General? That was
That was a little later.
69?
That was 68.
I might have even seen it when it came out.
Oh, come on. You'd have been 1 or 2.
3? It would have been 3.
Every 3-year-old needs to see that kind of stuff.
Well, I was taken to that sort of things when I was a wee lad.
You had sick and twisted parents, I'll just say that.
A little bit. Yeah, they didn't have qualms about taking me to R-rated movies at a very early age. And yeah.
I think my first R-rated movie, I was probably like 16.
I know I was super young when I saw it and barely remember it. So it might have been. Yeah, might have been when it came out.
I think my first R-rated movie was Excalibur, whenever that came out.
Okay.
I was definitely
that was later.
A youngish teenager.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. If it wasn't on network TV, we didn't see much.
Now, the one that surprises me the most, and what year was that? Straw Dogs. Remember that Dustin Hoffman movie? Not the remake in 2011, but the original, 1971.
Uh-huh.
And I know I was taken to that. I would have been 6. I know I was taken to that when it came out. And I saw it much later as an adult. And that's the one, it's the only one that I've seen, as an adult where I think, oh my God, you took a child to see this movie?
Don't think I've seen it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. It's got a brutal rape scene, brutal attack, and some brutal deaths in it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's still rated R, a 1971, Dustin Hoffman. And they did a remake in 2011, which I have not seen.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
All right, so 4 more Vincent Price movies next week.
Yeah.
Then maybe we'll watch something else the week after.
Maybe.
Or maybe we'll find more Vincent Price.
Maybe.
Welcome to the Vincent Price Podcast.
This is the Vincent Price channel.
It certainly has
all
been
Vincent,
lately.
all the time.
May 2021, Vincent Price Month. Okay, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.